Hi everyone, welcome to Got Therapy, the Dan Rose Show here at Columbus State University. We're on Columbus State TV. So we are here today with Dr. Dan Rose, and he is, see his finger, there you are, sir.
I was pointing
on,
you.
on the camera, I know, you're trying to, I don't know where you were pointing actually. This is your show. We talk about a lot of topics. We talk about some of the more serious kinds of topics. Sometimes we have a lot of fun on this show. Almost every time we have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk today about violence.
Violence.
And
Violence.
it seems to be in our news headlines. There's a lot happening in this recent time. We want to talk.
I don't like violence. I take that back.
I can understand why you would not. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about this phenomenon, this violence. What is rage, violence in people, anger, acting out anger, and then how does the psychologist, how does the mental health professional deal with a person who brings in this rage or has a problem with anger, anger management, if you will. So what's your initial thoughts about the process of helping someone with anger issues?
Well, but how about we start, because we just had some bad things happen in Boston, right?
Absolutely.
Even as we speak, not to date this episode, I wouldn't go out with this episode, so let's not date it. Bad joke.
Bad joke, but I think people have understood that.
But right now,
a lot of
bad
things have happened.
Right,
Yes.
even as we're taping this, there is a fugitive from Boston connected possibly with the bombings that occurred, right?
Absolutely.
And we can make the assumption that those bombings are an act of rage, so to speak.
I would think so. I mean, this was perpetrated on innocent people. There wasn't any kind of reason for this to happen other than it comes from the two people who were the suspects in this case. And this has happened. It's happened before in our history, obviously. But it was that kind of situation where this was just perpetrated on innocent people. So where does that rage come from? And
here's the thing. See, let's start with
begin to understand it.
They probably have a reason. See, that's the thing. They probably have a reason.
There is a reason.
So there was a thought process that was involved. And for instance, there's a thing called a catathymic response. And that is sort of a reflexive act of anger. Like somebody steps on your toe and then you pop them. That's catathymic, right? Okay. It just happens. Builds up and it blows and you go boom.
Got it.
If there is a calculated, a cold sort of reason, we got a whole different thing going on.
Right, because all of this bombing that we just referred to, this had to be planned out over a period of time, days, weeks, maybe even months or more.
There was a lot of thought.
A lot of thought went into it.
Well, I might, I think I might be more interested in not why they did it, but how are we supposed to survive their act? Like, if you'll notice, right after the bombing, there were a couple things that happened. One thing, I had one of my supervisees came in and was talking with me and said, after what happened in Boston, I just don't feel safe. I don't feel safe anywhere.
Wow, okay.
And then you'll notice that there was somebody else who also tweeted right after the bombing, "Kill all Muslims." And I think those are both two reactions to that event. And I think one is a bit more adaptive than the other. And one of them has a bit more thinking in it than the other as well.
Right.
And I think one of them shows the potential for how rage can be catching.
Right.
It is a
it has a contagion to it.
It can be communicable. I mean, you catch it. So I'm interested in how you think this sort of stuff. Like, what is the process by which you are impacted by an event like that and make some sort of use of it?
Yeah. So what happens internally to the person who is just reacting to this, and in what ways is that displayed in their lives? You said the first person, your supervisee, said that they felt
unsafe.
Unsafe. That's a very. How did you respond to that? What might one respond to when someone, and this act happened a long way?
Well, my first response was, get out of my office. I got more important things to do than listen to your crap.
Right.
That's how I deal with all supervisees.
Yeah, you have a sign for that.
Yeah,
it's hold up a sign.
But no, I actually, I think that I would say that this supervisee was actively attempting to think what happened. She was in some way engaged with the event of the bombing, unlike the second person who automatically moved to a place, and there's a term in psychoanalytic theory called by this guy. Well, we talked about him last time, Wilfred Bion.
Right.
He's got positive and negative K, which he calls positive knowledge and negative knowledge. And negative knowledge is thinking you think you know something, but you really don't.
Yes.
Or thinking you're thinking, but you're not really thinking.
Right.
And
or emotional reaction or some other
right.
kind
Well,
of
the emotional and both of them had an emotional reaction to that. But the second person automatically assumed, and then assumed they had a solution, and they spoke it. Right. That is an act of negative K. It is knowledge that really keeps you ignorant. If knowledge is somehow necessary for growing the mind, someone who stays in that kill all the Muslims place is starving, right?
Right.
They ain't getting nutrition.
Right. The ability to really kind of think through and weigh all the possibilities, weigh their own reactions, self-reflect on their reactions. You know, I had a person, I was watching the TV just in the hallway, and it had it had news about the bombing in Boston, and one of the student here came up and said, why all this coverage about Boston? Because where's Margaret Thatcher's funeral on the screen? I mean, she was actually sounded very upset.
A Thatcher fan, no?
Absolutely.
The Iron Lady.
But at the time, I was thinking,
Pharaoh,
wow, this may outweigh that a little bit, and that was sort of my reaction to it. And then, but I could tell she was very frustrated with that. What do you make of that particular reaction?
Well, see, now I might, if I might wonder if it was defensive.
Right.
I wonder if somehow, and I make the assumption, and I'm not going to say anything bad about Margaret Thatcher, but
right.
I grew up. She wasn't very well liked in the circles I travel. It still isn't in the circles I travel in.
Okay.
So I don't know about yours, but she,
right.
you know, she was, you know, she did some things. In fact, she helped. Actually, I should thank her, but because of her policies, the first wave and second wave of punk out of Britain.
Okay.
So we can thank her for the Sex Pistols, I think.
Okay.
And for, but I think it's defensive. I think maybe that's an example of.
She was acting so upset about that, and no coverage for this other story, all focused on this. But that may have been a defensive act on her part, the student.
She wasn't thinking the Boston thing, and so she found a way to sort of run away from it into Thatcher's funeral.
So you think that people really have a wide range of response to this type of terrorist act?
You talking about Thatcher?
Talking about Boston.
Okay.
And the violence that we started with today. But people can have a wide range of reacting to that, to very defensive, to very hostile.
Well, you think that there's this guy, I think I may have talked about him before, Alain Badiou. He's this French continental philosopher. And he talks about that there are such things as occurrences, but for a truth event is something that arrives, and that you are somehow, your mind is grown from. The truth in some ways expands. And he sort of lists, and there's a similar parallel between this and cognitive psychology and the notion of assimilation versus accommodation. And Badiou says, you know, there are 4 ways things can arrive. They can simply be assimilated, they can register as a minor existential event, and then a major existential event, or they can be a truth event, and a truth event requires accommodation.
Okay.
So when something like Boston happens, I think we can receive this in lots of different ways, and how we receive it determines if it's something we can grow from. Are we able, you know, the paper I'm giving in Boston, if anybody's in Boston, right now not exactly a tourist destination, but if you're thinking about going,
but very timely on your paper.
That's right.
You're going to Boston
to talk
about
Psychologists in the Age of Violence.
Right.
And the premise of my chapter that I'm reading is, or the paper I'm reading is that as psychologists, you're supposed to be an agent for change. You're supposed to be able to help those who come to see you to think and feel and move through the things that are happening to them.
Absolutely.
So my thought is, what sort of mind is a psychologist supposed to have in a time when things like Boston happen?
Right.
And so part of my thinking these events is to say, well, maybe we live in an age of violence. Maybe we do,
Very
maybe
well.
we don't.
A lot of people would agree with that.
That's an act of thinking, but where it is on that Badiou scale, am I receiving it as a truth that can grow me, or am I somehow, am I not? Has to be determined, because calling it an act of violence, for instance, could be part of that negative K. I could be assuming I know something that I don't, and if I only stay in a place of calling it violence, then I'm in trouble. And I think what Badiou and Bion, and maybe the point of my chapter is that anytime something like Boston happens, it should engage a dialectic. It should engage talk. It should be engage movement. It should not move one to a place of knowing with a capital K. It should be, it should generate the sort of productive ambivalence that can move one forward to engage the world in a different, slightly different, but still, you're still engaged. You're still moving.
Right. You're trying to processing this information in some way, but it seems to be that there, and we've alluded to that already, that there are sort of extreme and emotional reactions and ones that knowledge with a K, capital K, as you were talking about. So this just brings up a good deal of anger in the person, and then
that's where it becomes. The guy who said to the tweet, "Kill all the Muslims," was in a place of significant affect.
Almost sounds like a very primitive reaction in a way. It's just a basic, primitive emotional reaction that, without much reflection, forethought, and really managing the data and finding out, and again, self-reflecting and kind of finding out how it affects you as an individual and those around you.
So sort of a basic fight reaction this guy had, right? It was automatically kill.
But then the other person was almost like, you said defensive, but that was almost a fear reaction. It could happen to me now.
It was more flight.
Fight or flight.
I think, though, that the one with the person saying, "I feel like I'm not safe," is attempting to at least engage. There's a dialectic. There is an engagement with an event in her response. There's the potential, if both these people were my patients and they came in and sat down in my office, with her, I've got someplace to go. With this guy, it's kind of tough.
Right. It's kind of his mind made up. He's kind of boxed himself in.
Yeah, well, this guy is,
feeling.
this is solid. This is the potential for movement, and you can if the person says, "Well, I don't feel safe anywhere," you can begin to explore what that means. Safety. Have she ever felt safe before? Is there what would make her safe in the future? There is something you can do. Kill all Muslims. I get that. I'm not sure. That's
Yes, I know. I think we can all fill in the end of that sentence for you. Not good idea in rational thought, maybe.
No.
In that situation. So, are these projections? Do people watch these kind of events in the media and on the news and on their mobile devices, and they have a reaction to it? And then, is there a projection process for these guys who say "kill all Muslims," or the other says "I feel endangered"?
Well, you could argue that as opposed to projection, it's a rejection. As opposed to being able, taking in the event and being able to digest it, dream it, do something with it. This is someone who automatically knows, pushes it away, this is what we have, boom, boom, boom. And notice, even if you dissect that statement, and it turns out that the two people that seem to be involved in this may be connected with Russian Islamic movements, to make a broad statement that this individual did, Muslims, that is at best remarkably inefficient.
Absolutely.
Right, at best.
You call it other things, but yes, that would be.
It's also stupid, but if he, but that makes it tremendously dangerous. It does him no good, because if you,
it turns out it might be even similar to the perpetrators and what they were doing and the way that they reacted to it.
In some ways, he has been infected by the same mindset of the people who blew up the bombs to begin with.
Right.
It is catching. It is like, it's like some sort of, I don't know, some sort of herpes of the stupid.
Okay.
Something like that.
I think you just coined a phrase there.
Something like
never
that,
been said before. I know certainly never on this show before.
You guys don't talk about herpes much.
All right, so you're giving a paper in Boston on how psychologists and mental health professionals might respond to violence, their position in that. Give us a few ideas from your paper that the viewers here might be interested in.
Well, the biggest idea for my paper.
Okay, hold it right there.
What?
All right. So, now let's just pretend that thought's already passed and you said that, and then let's get back to my question. All right. Try it again. See, I'm catching on here. I'm absolutely catching on.
Yeah, well, actually, well, the second thought really wasn't much better. The second thought is what you really gather from the paper talk.
Right.
Is I really want very much to be liked.
Yes.
I wasn't liked enough early on.
So
I'm really hoping people will like me. That's the thought you're going to say, as you see this, me give that paper, that guy he really needs a hug. Somebody give that guy. But
I'm thinking, but there may be more to your paper. And I certainly hope you're liked at the end of it. But
yeah, I will. I'm hoping I'll get a hug. I'm hoping a group hug at the end of this.
A group hug. All right, so your point.
Here's the point. It's a simple point. There are several points.
Go.
Most of them, one of them is on my head, but there's this notion of negative capability.
Right.
The idea that when you receive something, if someone talks to you, if you receive something, you want to be in a place where you can maintain a sense of ambivalence. You do not rush to judgment. You allow yourself to be irritated, frustrated, even made afraid by the things that you are perceiving and receiving. If you can perceive and receive and maintain that state of frustration, that state of anxiety, then you have the capability of thought.
So that ambiguity that you might feel, that's okay for you to feel that confusion, conflict.
It is necessary because I think there's a little more ambivalence in the person who says to me, I don't think I can ever feel safe again. They didn't say, I will never feel safe again, you've ruined my world. It was not a place of splitting, of black and white.
Right.
It was a place in that, they also talk about this in my end, that it is, there's a potential for symbolization in that place, whereas the other one, you can't work with it. There is a mind at work, even at least burgeoningly, in the first as opposed to the second one. So your idea is, how do you stay? And you see this arose out of dealing with people in psychotherapy, because you can have those sorts of reaction to the event of having someone in your office if they say and do something that you perceive as threatening or as that is asking for you to be able to grow and accommodate in a way that you are not ready for.
Right.
So you as a therapist can move in any of those directions. So the idea is, how do you stay in a place where you allow yourself to be disturbed by the things around you, and you can stay in a place of disturbance? I think that's be the point of my paper.
That's a really nice point. I think people are going to like you after this. I'm not giving any free hugs out right now.
Right.
However, I will
do you feel like hugging me at this moment? You know,
I'm not feeling safe right now at the moment.
I
think I'm not feeling safe.
There's good touch, bad touch. My kids learn that in school.
Excellent thing to learn for them. That's right. There you go. Although hugs, somewhere they come in and they feel good. So we got to work through that. But that's a very interesting thought, that our first reaction may be to anger or may be to a simple emotion or very strong and powerful emotion one way or another. Love, hate, anger, those kinds of basic emotions. But we need to process that in a way that, how does it affect us, and kind of be okay with the conflict, the confusion, the ambiguity, and so forth, in terms of beginning to really understand what happens.
If you can sort of hold the event in your hands and you allow yourself to be in a mindful place, a place where you are thinking and feeling, and that opens up the possibility of learning from the experience. Events like Boston, you can't redeem those things because they are horrible things, and I think it would do nobody any justice to say somehow that we need those sorts of things.
Right.
But there is wisdom to be garnered and gained if you can stay in a place where you can receive those, and there may be something, even something good, in the fact that an event like that happens. There can be, again, and we could do the whole event disjustice by somehow painting it one color or the other. But if we can stay in a place of that negative capability, we have the potential of being able to do something with it where the otherwise wouldn't.
Okay.
I get the hug.
All right, hugs coming up pretty shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. This has been
I didn't do this a lot, did I?
Did you slam the table on?
I did,
well, you did okay, but I noticed on one of the episodes that the lights actually went off.
I'm trying to make them go off.
Stop abusing our desktop here and deal with that and process that anger, rage, whatever that is.
This is like a real. How much did this thing cost?
Oh, it costs a lot of money, and we're happy to have you here on this with this table in this studio.
I think I should
here at Columbus State University, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Dan Rose. This is the show entitled "Got Therapy," because we talk about all those issues with mental health and psychotherapy and psychology and so forth. And so we are glad you tuned in, and tune in again to the next show when we will be talking with
and I'll be back from
discussing
Boston.
issues. And you will be back from Boston. Good luck with your paper and presentation up there. Folks, we'll see you next time on Got Therapy. I'm Michael Baltimore for Dan Rose. Take care. See you next time.